welcome back, guys, to another episode. We've got our buddy Connor here from Sims, and we kind of threw this episode together today. There's been kind of some recent news, I guess, in the fly fishing world. If people aren't familiar with the Madison River, it's in Montana, and there was kind of an issue with a dam breaking and causing kind of some harm to the fish. So Connor is a local in Bozeman. You're in Bozeman, right?
I live just outside of Bozeman, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so Adam and I know Connor through our relationship with Sims. So we've been connected with him for a couple months now, and we thought it'd be fun to bring you on and just kind of hear about what happened, get kind of a local's take on the situation and kind of what it looks like going forward. But do you want to just start out, just for people who maybe aren't aware, kind of share what happened exactly and kind of why that was such a big issue on the
Yeah, for
Madison River?
sure. So basically, I think it was last Tuesday, November 30th, but the dam, so Hebgen Dam, which the Upper Madison, or sort of what people call the Upper Madison, flows out of, there was a malfunction. So Northwest Energy manages that dam, and first off, I think it's 107 years old, so super old, kind of antiquated, and it was one of these things where I'm sure the writing might have been on the wall, but old equipment and something broke. I was told that it was some sort of like a drive shaft that operates the head gate. But I guess around 1 or 2 a.m. on November 30th, the head gate broke, or equipment, that operates the head gate. And basically it dropped the flows from around 650 CFS, which is pretty normal, to below 200. So I think, on Wednesday, December 1st, when we got up there, the flows were at like 170 CFS, which, exposed a lot of the river. So really the upper stretches of the river, kind of what we call between the lakes. So between Hebgen and Quake Lake, that was really negatively affected. So really there was just a main channel that still had water in it, but a lot of the sort of braiding or side channels went dry. And obviously this is sort of prime brown trout spawning time frame. And so a lot of, the major concern was certainly reds, but also fish that had gotten, isolated from the main flow of the river. So there were, side channels that dried up on kind of either end, and they left small, shallow pockets of water where certain fish couldn't get back. So that's basically what happened. And, I think there was kind of an incredible response from the local community, but also folks, coming from even other states. I heard people who were from Colorado, or just people who, love the resource and kind of jumped to action. So really there was just an incredible turnout of folks, and everybody pretty much just divvied up into sections of the river and did the best they could during that time frame, sort of from when the dam broke until they restored flows. And the main goal was to get the fish that were isolated from the main stem of the river back into flowing water. There was a meeting at Madison Foods, which is there in Ennis, and FWP came, and Northwest Energy. There was kind of a briefing the morning of Wednesday, the December 1st, I guess it was. And from there, I think 100 people probably showed up to the grocery store parking lot there. And then from there, they kind of organized groups so that everybody was with an FWP sort of facilitator. And they were groups of about 5 people, per FWP representative. And then they were sent out to different segments of the river, and the FWP folks all had shocking packs, which made gathering those isolated fish much more effective. So pretty much from there, it was follow around the shocking guy and scoop up what you could, get it into buckets and back into the rivers as quickly as possible.
And that happened like a day before, right? Didn't the kind of the news of it, and because I remember seeing it all on social media kind of unfold and people sharing stuff about it, and which was, I think you said, the 30th, and then it was the next day that people were already out and
Yeah,
out helping
even
out.
that same day. So basically, what I heard is that looking at the graphs, the flows dropped around 1 or 2 a.m., but it was local anglers who were up kind of between the lakes who sounded the alarm, more or less. They basically noticed, quickly decreasing flows, and reached out to FWP, reached out to Northwestern Energy, and got some folks out there to kind of figure out what had gone wrong. But during that first day, a ton of people, I mean, lots of local outfitters, guides, all kind of jumped to action and got out on the river. By the time that I made it up there, there were not many visible fish, sort of like backs out of the water or anything like that. I mean, a tremendous amount of effort went in that first day by folks who lived, in the general area. But that, kind of shows the power of social media, right? I mean, people were posting about it. The word got out incredibly fast, and lots of people were kind of trying to figure out, what can we do? How can we help? So yeah, just tons and tons of people basically responding.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing your story of everyone at the parking lot or whatever in the morning, and I just thought that was so cool, like such a testament to the local fishing community, and like you said, people who traveled from afar to come there. It was almost just like everyone who's in the area come help out, and I just thought it was cool for the community to come together and actually do something good, and social media to provide something good. That's always a win, or as I see it.
It's kind of funny. I guess that FWP and the local biologist, Mike Duncan, when they first kind of reached out to, ask some folks to help coordinate, basically they said they were kind of hoping like 30 people would show up so that they could effectively divvy up, the different stretches of the river. And, like I said, I bet well over 100 people showed up. And at first they were kind of like, man, we might have too many people here. We're actually worried about, folks walking on reds, exposed reds, things like that. But pretty quickly the decision was made to just, people were going to get out on the river and do what they could one way or another. And so they just kind of gave everybody a briefing on how to identify reds, not to walk on them. And it was also pretty quickly decided that the cold weather was more of a danger to those exposed reds than the potential of people, maybe stepping on them. So yeah, and even outside of that gathering at the grocery store there, there were hundreds of people who did not go to the meeting and just kind of went straight to the river. So yeah, I'm not even sure how many people were out there, but lots of folks for sure.
So yeah, I guess after kind of being there and seeing what happened, what do you think, is this going to have like any long-term effect on the Madison or on the fish or anything? Or was this just kind of a flux thing that just happened and it was a quick fix that fortunately people were able to kind of move some of the fish? Like, what does it look like going forward for the river?
Yeah,
and the fishery?
I'm obviously not an expert. I'm just a regular dude who, like many others, wanted to help out. But I actually was in the local biologist group here. So our fisheries biologist for Region 3, his name's Mike Duncan. Super cool guy. And it was really interesting spending the day with him and just kind of asking a lot of the same questions. So I guess to start off, it was pretty impressive. Well, it was a lot it wasn't as bad, I guess, as I was expecting. After seeing the posts like many other people did, I mean, I was expecting to see fish out of water and just sort of doom and gloom. But when we got there, I think just based off of so many people helping out, it really, there weren't a ton of fish exposed or isolated from the main river. It was definitely really effective. The procedures they had to get fish back into the river with the electroshocking, netting, putting them in buckets. And I think the big concern, outside of adult fish being stranded, were the reds, right? So exposing those spawning grounds to, basically taking them out of the water. And in talking with Mike, he did say it's actually pretty remarkable how well those reds can kind of survive that, being out of water. The big concern was the temperatures. So strangely enough, we've had really warm temperatures here this fall and kind of early winter, which I think, given the circumstances, actually, benefited the situation. Mike was saying it didn't drop below freezing that night. So that was the main concern. If it froze, the exposed beds, those eggs would die. It did not drop below freezing from what he could tell. So he did think, if flows were restored pretty quickly, that there wouldn't be a huge negative impact on that year's fish. So, given that the following day they had flows restored before midnight, I do think it's kind of best case scenario. But I think time will only tell, right? It's hard to say how they'll fare being exposed. And I don't think there'll be a major impact on like this year's fish class. But, I think the negative impact could certainly be from those spawning areas.
Just hard to tell exactly right now,
Yeah,
I guess.
totally.
Sure. Something Adam and I were talking about beforehand, we were curious about, was if you had seen any reds like out of the water, because obviously there were some shallow pools, but did you see any that were exposed like out of the water?
Certainly. Especially in that upper stretch of the river. So from Hebgen Dam down to Quake, between the lakes, that's a major spawning area. And then really the drop in flows was downwards towards the lowest that I went was kind of where the West Fork of the Madison comes in. And there's some side channels there. So a lot of those side channels, they're prime spawning habitat, and that's kind of what went dry. So there were certainly areas where, even though there was no water covering it, you could see the clean gravel. You could kind of see that, pillow that they build kind of back where they lay the eggs. And so, yeah, I mean, certainly there were some visible reds that were totally out of the water. Again, Mike, was pretty confident that if they could restore flows relatively quickly, that they had a really good chance at surviving. So, but yeah, certainly there were some exposed reds.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's probably a cool learning opportunity to be there and talk with biologists and different locals that know the water well. Because I mean, thinking if a red is exposed to the air, my understanding I would just think it would go away or, not be able to maintain. But yeah, no, that's super cool. I saw a picture actually, the spot right below the dam where it's crazy because I fished there, and the left side, or the left channel, just completely dry, and pictures of people just moving fish and everything. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's where we were. So my group was in that between the lakes section. And, I bet there were maybe 4 or 5 different groups up there, and then a whole bunch of just local folks who weren't necessarily associated with a certain group, but were out there helping, doing what they could. And, it was pretty quickly, well, I guess every group felt like they had really covered their given area pretty quickly. and gotten any of the fish that were, isolated from the main river back in the river. So I really do. I mean, I certainly left feeling like they were in pretty good shape. It definitely didn't feel like, holy crap, we have so much more to do, and we didn't get to all these little pockets, and there's just a tremendous amount of the river that wasn't covered. I mean, it really felt like so much of the river was covered, and people really pretty quickly got whatever was exposed back in the river. So
was that pretty surreal seeing like the Madison so low, seeing, look so different than it normally does? I mean, I feel like I've spent more days on the Madison than many trout rivers I've ever, fished. And it's like, I've been there so many days in that, what you're talking about, 500 to 600 CFS kind of range. And then a few obviously, fished it late or, right around runoff time when, flows are way high. But I mean, was it really weird being like, I've run streamers and nymphs through where I'm standing right now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you.
Or maybe dry flies, maybe, but
probably dry flies.
I mean,
maybe
just like you. I mean, I've spent a lot of days up there. I can't even imagine what it was like for the local guides and outfitters who make their living on that water. But yeah, one of the really weird things driving up to get below the dam, you pass the lake and there's all those dead trees out there, and you could just see within that one day, like the water line on all those trees had dropped, and there's just that, wet, like 2 feet of tree.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of the first indicator in my mind, below sort of the slide in and Kelly Gallup shop, that upper river $3 bridge. I mean, you could tell that it was low, but it didn't look horrible. But then, kind of passing that, getting up to the slide, looking out on the lake and just being like, holy crap, that's dropped a ton in a day. Wow. That was kind of the first scene that really stuck with me. And then, obviously getting up between the lakes, and that area was specifically, the most affected, just because then you got that extra reservoir of water that goes into the rest of the river. So not as affected downstream, but yeah, between the lakes, it was pretty, it was definitely kind of surreal.
I did see that. Was it? I can't remember who it was. I guess it was it FWP that suspended fishing through the rest of the day, and until whenever said obviously we're not gonna be fishing
right.
Madison anymore. They suspended fishing. Is it back open? I mean, are people fishing it, or maybe not in between the lakes, but I mean, is it fishable lower? Can you tell us anything about the current fishing condition?
Yeah, I actually don't know for that.
Or is it still closed? Because I haven't seen anything about it opening back up. Not that I'm trying to come up there and fish it tomorrow. I'm just curious what the state has done as far as fishing limitations.
Yeah, so they did. I mean, they quickly shut it down that morning. I think by like 9 or 10 a.m. they had put out a statement saying the Madison's closed to fishing. I don't know if it is open to fishing currently. I think it's just kind of one of those things, like I don't plan to fish it in the near future or so. Just seems like the river and the fish got pretty good shock there, and it's probably best to kind of let them chill and kind of recover a little bit before heading out. That would be my personal thought process, but I'm sure, once the flows are kind of back up, I think they're back up around, I looked at it today and it was like 660 something. So back to normal flows. And yeah, I'm sure that, fishing will reopen if it isn't already.
Did it have any sort of effect on the lake above it, like where the dam is?
I did not get up above the reservoir when I was there, or above the dam, I mean, but I wouldn't suspect that, a day of not releasing water from the reservoir would have a major effect.
Yeah, I mean, Hebgen's so huge and so deep that I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Any sort of flooding or anything like that from it. But
no, definitely no flooding, and I think that it shouldn't be affected by it.
Do you know, has Northwest Energy or whoever kind of runs the dam, have they made any steps to kind of, maybe protocol to put something into protocol if this happens again, or maybe how to avoid this in the future? Like, has there been any change?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's still kind of unclear what exactly happened. Like I said, I know that major drive shaft or whatever for the head gate did break. It sounded like it was a pretty major repair process. So when we were up getting briefed, with the rest of the folks in the morning, they did have representatives from Northwest Energy there, and basically they said they sent divers in. So some folks, suited up, went down in there and then sort of identified the issue. I think, with many dams, obviously, there should be systems in place to monitor them. But, I think it was just one of these deals where no one could really have expected that to have broken. But yeah, certainly one of those glaring instances where, these super old dams should probably be monitored more effectively than maybe they are.
Yeah, I'd be terrified going down there in the diving.
I know, right?
Couldn't pay me enough money to do that.
That is too.
Oh gosh.
I don't know. Definitely, I haven't heard a lot of people really being too upset with the Northwest Energy from the instance, and a lot of the stuff I saw, at least, it really sounded like it's not like they responded extremely quickly. I feel like, I know they worked overnight, fixing the dam, fixing the problems. Sounds like they responded to it to the best of their ability. As far as that, so I don't know how if that was kind of the feeling that you got. That was the feeling, at least, that I got from a lot of the information that I heard, was that they immediately, we got a problem, here's what we're going to do to fix it. They worked overnight, had crews working overnight to fix the dam and the problem. So at least that's a great thing. But definitely for maybe in the future, some of these old dams might need some. If we're going to keep them around, might need some money to be put into them to, have those warning. Like you said, there was no one knew that it had even broken until, some fishermen or whoever it was, down river realized that things were dropping. So, I guess that definitely brings up a big question of, what should we do with these older dams that aren't, being. Obviously it keeps the Hebgen Lake up there, but they don't use it for electricity. Is that right at this point?
I do believe that it's for electricity.
Is it?
Yeah. It
hydroelectric, whatever.
Hydro dam, yeah.
Yeah.
But absolutely. I really don't know. Again, the details there. I haven't seen any sort of detailed report come out on exactly what happened. That was just sort of what we heard from Northwest Energy that morning. So yeah, it's super hard to say. I do feel that they acted probably as quickly as they could. And it was one of those things where, at least for myself, I kept looking at the graph, following that evening and wondering when I got up, whether or not it would have returned to normal. And so it was kind of one of those moments when you logged on and looked at the water flows and it popped back up. It was a pretty good feeling there. But
yeah,
I think they probably did the best that they could and certainly reacted pretty quickly once they knew something was wrong, or at least that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, which is good. At least they cared enough about it. I guess they could have easily said, "Well, we'll figure it out. I don't really know what's going on," and we'll get that fixed at some point. We'll get that fixed.
Yeah.
But if it happened to another river, my guess is that might have been the mentality of it. If it wasn't, the Madison. If it was just some other river somewhere that, nobody's really ever heard of, that could have been a PR nightmare for them would, if they hadn't gotten it fixed in time, I guess. But so I don't know, kind of, obviously that's a little different story, but definitely makes me wonder, if it wasn't the Madison, if this had happened to, what would be the outcome?
Well, it's good to hear that it seems like things are kind of on the up and up, because I mean, like you said, social media can sometimes blow things out of proportion a little bit, or kind of polarize it, or just make it seem a little worse than it might be or better than it might be. So it's good to hear that it's kind of, things are good, and the flows are back to normal, and hopefully everyone who came out and helped, hopefully that helps long term with, kind of restoring the populations and making sure that didn't mess anything up.
Yeah, I feel like, the biggest takeaway I got out of the whole thing personally was just how many people really care about the resource. It was pretty astounding to see everybody out there, everything from, moms with super little kids and people taking off work for the day. And it was definitely one of those moments where you felt like, if all else failed, at least there's a whole bunch of local advocates for the resources and people willing to drop whatever's going on to kind of help out. So that was pretty impressive, I think, from the community as a whole.
Yeah. Maybe for the folks listening that maybe haven't ever been to Between the Lakes, how many river miles is that from the dam down to this next lake, the Quake Lake that you're talking about?
Yeah, I actually don't know exactly how many it is. I mean, certainly, you can walk wade the whole thing in a day, no problem, right? So if you were to start, right below the dam and kind of walk down to where it meets up with the lake there, it's a pretty easily done on foot. So I don't know the exact number, but definitely walkable for sure. And that's, that's the section between the lakes, right? I mean, below that, kind of starting from the slide and then down towards $3 Bridge and the rest down into Ennis Lake. I mean, that's a giant section of river.
Yeah, for sure.
So
you said the lower stuff kind of near $3 wasn't that affected compared to
that didn't seem to be too affected. There's definitely if you're driving up from Ennis, there's kind of those visible side channels before you kind of get off to the turn off at $3. There were some big exposures in that side channel zone there, and then again, some of those side channels down near where the West Fork comes in, I did drive down and take a look in there, and those are pretty exposed as well. But, Valley Garden, Varney, all of that stuff, from what I heard, just from other folks who were out on the river that day, it sounded like, they weren't really negatively affected by it. So I think those lower stretches of river, obviously it took a longer period of time to be affected by the drop in flows. So yeah, it really was that upper section of river that was negatively affected.
Well, besides that, is how's the fishing kind of now that crowds have probably settled down and winter's starting to set in? How's the fishing besides Madison in kind of in the area?
Honestly, it's been an unbelievable fall for fishing in Montana. Unseasonably warm, so definitely a lot more days that folks are kind of comfortably out and fishing. And I think water temps have been, more in that prime window. So yeah, fishing this fall has been spectacular. It's definitely one of those things where I feel like it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? We're enjoying it now, but we definitely need winter to kick in here, and we need some moisture. So I think everybody's kind of like, all right, this has been great, but let's get some snow and hopefully the temps drop.
Yeah, Adam and I were talking too before this. We're definitely getting the skiing itch, ready to get all that going and get the snow going.
Yep. Yeah, Bridger looks pretty dismal from the trail cams that I've been watching. But yeah, fishing's been great. So I think everybody's kind of ready for ski season at this point.
Yeah. Well, sweet, man. Really appreciate you coming on here for a little bit, and it was good educationally for me and Adam just to kind of hear, especially you were being out there during the day and actually seeing what was going on, and just I think again it's a testament to the local community, the fly fishing community. People can share as many things as they want on social media, but the fact that people actually showed up and came, brought their kids, and I think that's just so awesome, and shows how strong the fly fishing community can be when we work together. So if anyone wants to learn more or monitor kind of the Madison, if they're curious about fishing it, if they're in the area, or if they just want to learn more about this, what do you think would be the best resource for them?
Yeah, honestly, the local shops most likely. So there's the Slide In Kelly Gallup shop, and then Joe Dilschneider. He owns Trout Stalkers and Madison River Fishing Company, and I would probably recommend calling those folks. Kelly was kind of all over it. He was out there. I think they shut down their shop for the day, and everybody kind of got out on the river and helped out. But both Joe and Kelly and the shops that they own, everyone there is super knowledgeable, and they live right there. So that's probably your best resource for trying to figure out just anything from fishing to kind of the updates on what's going on with everything that happened with the dam. Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, FWP, they're obviously another great resource, and you can call Region 3, or they've also got, Instagram handles as well, and they did a pretty good job of kind of keeping up with everything on their social pages. So that's probably what I would recommend.
Sweet. Yeah, that's awesome. Adam, you got anything to add last minute here?
No, I mean, I think Connor did a great job. Appreciate having him on and telling us how it was on the ground.
Right on.
I know if any of us had been in driving distance, we would have been up there. But fortunately, Scotty's in North Carolina, and I was filming in Alabama. So
that's right.
When it happened, so we were unfortunately not able to make it ourselves.
Yeah, no problem. I think it was well covered by plenty of local folks.
That sounds like there was enough folks. They didn't need me there.
Definitely. But, yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. It's always good catching up, and let's catch up soon, boys.
Absolutely, man.
Sounds great. Thanks, Connor.
Cool. Well, we appreciate you guys listening, watching. The dog's going crazy in the back. So, but we're gonna end this one, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Later, guys.